All right, a couple of announcements. Hey, grab a January calendar if you don't have one. Big thing that we need to mention and talk about. Next Sunday at 10:15 is our annual business meeting, and I know you guys haven't been coming, until 11 or so for some of you. But if you can come early, attend the annual business meeting. We're going to vote on a couple things. We go over budget. We go over a new board member, just talk about kind of where we've been, where we're going. Not really where we're going because we tried that last year and it didn't work out. So where we've been, what's coming up, if anything. And it's just a good time to kind of get a snapshot of where Life Change Church is. So if you're interested, please come to that. Let's see. And yeah, it'll be quick and it'll be easy, I promise. And if you've been to any other church business meeting and you're like, real scared because you've been to another church business meeting, this one's not like that at all. I guarantee it. It'll be quick and painless, mostly. Also, there is ministries are starting back up. Ladies Bible Study is starting back up on Thursdays in a couple weeks, and then the men's group is starting back up on Mondays at the end of the month. So if you're interested in those, let me know, and then everything else that's on there. Tithe and offering box is back there. New visitor cards are back there. If you're a new visitor, fill one of those out, and we'll get you a free Life Change Church coffee mug today. Not this one. We have ones in little plastic bags, so they're clean. This one, not clean. No, just joking. All right. Starting the new year off with a new series that we're going to be going through. And it's a series simply about being a disciple of Christ, okay? And I love to give definitions of things, so I want to give the definition of the word disciple. But before I do that, I get excited, and this is probably nerdy or whatever, but I get excited when when secular things prove the validity of the Word of God, okay? So like the dictionary, right? Everybody knows what the dictionary is, right? You look it up, and then you get a word, and then you know what that word means, right? You guys know how to work that? Okay, so when the dictionary, specifically in a definition of something, talks about Jesus, that to me validates Jesus, because everybody believes the dictionary, right? So like if you meet somebody who doesn't believe in Jesus, then they technically cannot believe in the dictionary either, which is dumb. So there's that. Anyways, definition of disciple. One of the 12 personal followers of Christ. One of the 70 followers sent forth by Christ, as in Luke chapter 10, verse 1. When the dictionary starts quoting scripture to me, like pointing out actual verses, that's like a whole nother level. Sorry, does anybody else get excited about that? Yeah. No? Okay, great. Any other professed follower of Christ in his lifetime, any follower of Christ, a person who is a pupil or an adherent of the doctrine of another, a follower. And that's really what we're talking about. When we talk about disciple today, I'm talking about a follower, okay? And that's what we're called to be. That's when we say we're a Christian or a follower of Christ, we're saying I'm a disciple of Christ. I am someone who desires to follow and desires to learn and desires to know the way to go, which is why this series is called This is the Way. Okay, it'll be on there at some point. And I believe that this is what Jesus really wants us to know starting this new year. I believe that he wants you to know, hey, if you want to follow me, I'm going to show you the way to go. This is the way to go. Now, we're going to talk about whether you want to be a follower or not, because there's a lot of people who would like to go to heaven. There's a lot of people who want the good stuff or an easy life or blessings or things like that. But that's not the same thing as being a follower. The question is, do we want to be those who follow Jesus? Do we want to be a disciple for real? And if that's you, then over the next 6 weeks, we're going to talk about that, and we're going to learn what way to go. So if you have your Bibles, you can open to Matthew chapter 16. And I'm going to read towards the end of Matthew chapter 16, but just to get you caught up in there, there's a bunch going on. Jesus has a run-in with the religious leaders of the day, and then he has a conversation with his disciples, and have a conversation about who he is, and Peter's like, this is who you are. You're the Messiah. You're the chosen one. And then Jesus is like, good job, Peter. You're the rock that I'm going to build my church on. And then Jesus says, I'm going to, have to die and, come back, 3 days later. And then Peter tries to rebuke Jesus, and then Jesus says, Peter, get behind me, Satan. And there's all this stuff, and it's really good chapter, so, you could read it at any point. Then we get to the part we're talking about today, because he's talking to his disciples, and he's talking to this group of guys that has followed him around for like 3 years, and he's given them this information. And he says this, starting in verse 24. Then Jesus said to his disciples, "Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me will find it. What good will it be for someone to gain the whole world yet forfeit their soul? Or what can anyone give in exchange for their soul? For the Son of Man is going to come in his Father's glory with his angels, and then he will reward each person according to what they have done." And we're going to stop there. All right. We start out, before we get into anything as far as the stuff from this passage that we're going to talk about over the next 6 weeks, the first thing we have to decide is what your desire is. Because it starts out, whoever wants to be my disciple. Basically, whoever wants to, whoever desires to follow me, these are all the things you're going to do, which we'll talk about in the next several weeks. But first thing we have to talk about is, what do you desire? Because I can't make this decision for you, right? Whoever wants to be my disciple. So the question is, do you want to be a disciple of Jesus? Is following Jesus something you desire? And if the answer is no, that's fine, but then it seems like there would be better places for you to be on a Sunday morning. If following Jesus is not what you want to do, then there might be better ways for you to spend your time. I'm fine with you being here, even if you don't want to follow. I'm just saying, if you're looking for a social club, there's ones that probably have far less singing and less one guy up here talking the whole time where you can enjoy yourself. I don't recommend that. I'm simply saying, if we're here, I'm assuming at this point that we're all deciding that we want to follow Jesus, okay? So if the answer is yes, that's the assumption I'm making, then there's going to be changes that need to be made. And even if you're like, hey, I already desire that. I've been desiring that for 20 years. I've been desiring that for this many years. There's always going to be changes that still need to be made because you're not done yet. The other thing is, you're going to desire something. We all desire something. You make daily decisions based on your desires, your wants, okay? And that can be good. If your desire is based on a decision that you make in accordance with God's plan for your life, that's awesome. But it can also be detrimental, because if it's based solely on how you feel, sometimes our desires don't really play out very well. So the question, again, what do you desire? Because this morning, if we're going to be Christ followers, we're going to be disciples, then there's some things we have to do that line up with that. So we're going to turn to the Old Testament to get some perspective. You can open to Joshua chapter 24. Some steps we can take, some things we can look at to make sure that we are desiring what it is we say we want to desire, okay? So in Joshua chapter 24, it's the end of the book of Joshua, and basically the Israelites were enslaved in Egypt, and Moses, brought them out, and then Joshua was with him, and then Joshua took over, and Joshua gets them into the promised land, and they battle the people there, and they go through all this stuff. And now they're kind of at the end of Joshua, and they're in the promised land. They've taken their territory, and basically they have their inheritance, and Joshua's given them some final instructions. And these are people who have been following God's direction for their lives, and they've taken the land that they promised him. They're God's people, and yet at the same time, he has to give them some instructions that I think at this point they should already have pretty much dialed in. And I think the same thing kind of goes for us. Sometimes, we give instructions, and it's like, these are things that it seems like we should already have dialed in, but sometimes we don't. So Joshua chapter 24, starting in verse 14. This is Joshua speaking. He says, "Now fear the Lord and serve him with all faithfulness. Throw away the gods your ancestors worshipped beyond the Euphrates River and in Egypt, and serve the Lord. But if serving the Lord seems undesirable to you, then choose for yourself this day whom you will serve, whether the gods your ancestors served beyond the Euphrates or the gods of the Amorites in whose land you are living. But as for me and my household, we will serve the Lord." Then the people answered, "Far be it from us to forsake the Lord to serve other gods. It was the Lord our God himself who brought us and our parents up out of Egypt and from the land of slavery, and performed those great signs before our eyes. He protected us on our entire journey and among all the nations through which we traveled. And the Lord drove out before us all the nations, including the Amorites who lived in the land. We too will serve the Lord because he is our God." Joshua said to the people, "You're not able to serve the Lord. He is a holy God. He is a jealous God. He will not forgive your rebellion and your sins. If you forsake the Lord and serve foreign gods, he will turn and bring disaster on you and make an end of you after he has been good to you." But the people said to Joshua, "No, we will serve the Lord." Then Joshua said, "You are witnesses against yourselves that you have chosen to serve the Lord." "Yes, we are witnesses," they replied. "Now then," said Joshua, "throw away the foreign gods that are among you and yield your hearts to the Lord, the God of Israel." And the people said to Joshua, "We will serve the Lord our God and obey him." On that day, Joshua made a covenant for the people, and there at Shechem he reaffirmed for them the decrees and laws. And Joshua recorded these things in the book of the law of God. And then he took a large stone and set it up under the oak tree near the holy place of the Lord. "See," he said to all the people, "this stone will be a witness against us. It has heard all the words the Lord has said to us. It will be a witness against you if you are untrue to your God." Then Joshua dismissed the people, each to their own inheritance. Okay. So here are the things that they were called to do if they were going to be those who followed God wholeheartedly. And they're the same things for us today if we desire to be disciples or followers of Christ. And here's the main thing you got to know today, okay? Just saying you desire something doesn't mean you actually desire it, okay? The bottom line when it comes to what you desire and how to figure out what you desire is you need to look at what you serve. What you serve, okay? We can say we desire any number of things, but the true indication of what we desire is what we serve. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. Number one, taking notes, write down the word serve. Joshua starts out, "Now fear the Lord and serve him with all faithfulness." If you look in this passage of scripture that I read, the word serve is used like 11 times in there. Because who you desire to serve is really important to God. Not just who you say you serve, but who you desire based on your actions. I could spend probably the rest of this time talking about the things that we say we desire to serve that aren't God. It would be a list as extensive as many people as there are in the world because we all serve something. We all desire certain things or whatever. And there would probably be some common ones, but the bottom line, if we really break it down, we desire to serve one of two things: God or ourselves. That's really what it boils down to. Because if it's not God, then everything else, it's ourselves. Even if you say, "No, I desire to serve, my wife or my kids or my parents or something like that," it's still about you. Okay? We either serve God or we serve ourselves. That's what it boils down to. So we have to make this choice. And that's what Joshua was telling the Israelites back then, and I believe what's God telling us today. Who are you going to serve? Who are you going to serve? Not just who you say you're going to serve, but through your actions, who are you going to serve? Not based on how much somebody else serves, but who are you going to serve, right? And not based on when you feel like it, but based on making a commitment saying, "I'm going to serve the Lord, whether I feel like it or not feel like it." Because guess what, you guys? There's going to be times where you don't feel like it. Like I'm a pastor. It's kind of like my job to serve the Lord, right? There's times when I don't feel like it. I don't see any. I thought you guys would be more surprised by that. When life is down the toilet and things are going wrong, and you're just like fed up with just things in general, and nothing's going your way, and at that point, if you made the commitment, you still serve. Okay? So if we desire to be a follower of Jesus, a disciple, we have to make the choice to serve, and we have to make the choice to serve continually, not just once in a while, and not just when we feel like it. All right, number two. You can write down the word eradicate, which is my favorite one of this because it's a big word, and I don't often use big words. All right. Next part, it says, "Throw away the gods your ancestors worshiped beyond the Euphrates River and in Egypt and serve the Lord." Throw away the gods. Now, this one, I think we, in the 21st century, in America, Christians, we don't get this. Because we think gods are things like, okay, if you have a little statue of Buddha and you put some, fruit and stuff around it, then that's a god, which it is, okay? But there's a lot of other things, right? There's a lot of things that we don't think are gods that I think can be gods. And really, it's limitless on the amount of things. And I'm gonna give you some examples of things that, and it's probably going to offend some of you, and that's okay. If you get mad at me or you don't like my example, or you're like, "I can't believe he's using that as an example," it's probably because that thing is a god for you, and then that's your problem, so I'm sorry. First service thought that was a lot funnier. All right. Okay, so things that we put value on, that we attribute worth to, that we take things that we should be giving God and we put them on other things, those things have become a god. Okay? So there's these things. You guys ever heard of dream catchers? There are these things that you hang in the window and then they're supposed to have some power or something like that. If we believe that that has power to do something, we've just taken the power that only God has and put it on something, and therefore it becomes a god. If you put stock in reading your horoscope thinking that that is going to give you some profound idea of what your future is going to be, you've just taken what God can actually do and put it on something else and made it a god. Now, am I telling you not to read your horoscope? If you want to read your horoscope, read your horoscope. I think they're stupid, but you can do it if you want. I mean, really, if we come to the conclusion that somebody decided that all the stars lined up perfectly, and then we're all these different things based on what month we're born in, and that's what characteristics you have, we are taking what God did and putting it on something that is ridiculously man-made and doesn't have any value. Look, you want a horoscope? I'll give you a horoscope, because here's pretty much how it's going to tell you. You might meet somebody new today. You're going to have a good day or possibly a bad one. Keep on keeping on. You know, it's like they have these little phrases and ideas that they're dumb, all right? How about good luck charms? Anybody ever put value in a good luck charm, in something that they do, something that they have? When I was in high school, I wrestled, and one season, I decided not to wash a pair of socks. I wore them every meet. One pair of socks, never washed them. Like at the end of the season, like I would hold it up and the sock would stick straight out like this because it was so disgustingly crusty and gross. Did that help me win matches? No. Well, I mean, it might have because they stunk, but not because of luck or something like that, right? Sometimes people get this idea of, they start attributing worth to things that are inanimate because it means something to them, okay? That's not the way we're supposed to go about things. That's not the way it is. Nothing is wrong with reading your fortune at the Chinese restaurant, okay? There's nothing wrong with that. Read it. Joanna Goslin told me that every time they read theirs, they just say, your food was poisoned. That's what their fortune says. But if you read that and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to put stock in this. This is going to happen because I read this fortune. Then you're attributing worth to something that should only be attributed to God. And therefore, that thing has now become a god. Okay? See, God's in the real sense are anything we put that we put the attributes of the one true God on and then worship them anyway. When we say, let's talk about luck again, okay? I'm going to say something. First service did not like this, the way they looked at me, but this is true. There is no such thing as good luck or bad luck. There's no such thing as good luck or bad luck. The word luck is not even found in the Bible. You know why? Because luck has nothing to do with anything. God has every single thing under control. Every single thing under control. And when something good happens to us and it's like, oh, that was lucky, and we're like, oh man, I'm so thankful for my good luck, right? What did we just do? We took gratitude, which should only be attributed to God, and we put it on luck. We are now therefore calling luck this God that we are giving thanks to. Now, you might not see it in this big of a dynamic. This is the way it is. When we take things that only should be attributed to God and we put them on things because we decide that thing did something for us, that's making that a God. Throw those away. Throw it away. Read your fortune and then wad it up and throw it away. Or just make something up because it's the same. It doesn't matter. Okay? I'm saying, here's the idea. Here's my idea. I got a better idea. Okay? Next time you're like, man, I need to read my horoscope to see what's going to happen today, just read the Bible. Just ask God what's going on today. Because I'm telling you right now, the things that you're going to read in the Bible are way better than what some person wrote somewhere. Sorry. There's all kinds of other words going through my head that I could not say from up here. Anyways, Other gods we carry around. See, I'm not even going to, I know a lot of people are probably like, oh, what about like people who watch too much TV? That becomes a god. Okay, whatever. You know what? If you want to throw that one in there, throw it in there. But I'm just talking about the stuff that we don't even look at. We don't even think that it is. You know what I'm saying? What about our attitudes? When we put more stock on our attitude or our thought processes or our way of doing things than what God actually says, guess what we just did? We made that a god. When we decide that what we think is more important or more right than what God thinks, based on our actions, because if we just start doing whatever we want, we're saying that what we think is more important than what God thinks, we just made that a god. So eradicate all the gods in your life. Because if you don't eradicate them, if you don't throw them, if you don't get rid of them, you will serve them. And if you serve them, you cannot serve God. If you serve something else, you cannot serve God. He is, Joshua says it in there, he is a jealous God. He is not down sharing, okay? Basically, he's like, look, if you're gonna follow me and you're gonna say you're my disciple and you're gonna say, you know, I'm gonna serve you, we're in this relationship, right? That's what he's saying, okay? You and I, it's like we're married now. And married people, we're not just okay with our spouse just every once in a while going and, you know, hooking up with somebody else, right? Right. Thanks. Right. We're not okay with that. We're never going to be okay with that. It's not like you get married, right? And then it's all of a sudden you're like, okay, well, once a year, I'm just going to go hook up with somebody else. Are you cool with that? Nobody would be cool with that. That's what God's like. He's like, you don't get to go both ways. If you're saying you're serving me, then this is it. And then I love what Joshua says in verse 19. They're like, oh yeah, we're going to do it. We remember all these things that God did, and we are going to serve God. And Joshua says, no, you're not. You're not going to do it. You can't even do it. Why did he say that? Because he saw these people. He saw these people walking in, and they're like, we're going to serve the Lord. And he's like, why do you got a rabbit's foot in your hand then, you freak? If we desire to be a disciple, a follower of Jesus, we have to make the choice to eradicate any gods in our own lives continually, because they will creep back in. They will creep back in. All right, number 3. You can write down the word return. Verses 16 through 21 says, the people answered, far be it from us to forsake the Lord. Okay? The definition of forsake is to leave or abandon. It means to give up or renounce. And Joshua is saying here, don't be those who leave and abandon God. Instead, return to him. Always return to him. And he's saying return to him because he's saying always come back, because you know what? He knows those people, just like he knows us. And he's saying, you know what? You're still going to pick up other gods. You're still going to do something and walk away. Return. Every time, return, return, return. 6 times in there, he talks about getting rid of other gods. You know why? Because Joshua knew the minute that they say, I'm going to serve the Lord, they're probably going to forsake him in some way. And he's saying, return. Come back. Always come back. It's like we make these commitments and almost immediately don't do them. You know what I'm saying? I read this quote. It said, shout out to everyone who said they would start eating healthy in the new year and then already put it off till Monday. You know what I'm saying? Because New Year's was on Friday, so it's like, well, we'll do it on the 4th. It's like, return. Because we should always return to him. Here's the deal. You're going to mess stuff up. You're gonna forsake him some way, somehow, some shape, some form. So always return. Now, this doesn't give us license to not follow. It doesn't say, well, if I'm going to mess up anyways, I might as well enjoy myself or something like that. It just means that we should know where we should keep our focus. That we don't want to forsake him, but when we do, he is a loving God. He is a kind God. Just like we talked about on last Wednesday, we were talking about the prodigal son, and he comes back to the father, and he's got this whole thing. You know, he took his inheritance, and he squandered it, and he comes back, and he's going to basically plead his case like, you know, I've sinned against the Lord and against you. I'm not worthy to be called your son. Please make me one of your servants. And as he's walking up, the father runs out to him and hugs him and puts a ring on his finger and a robe on him and has a huge party because this son that was lost is now found. That's us every time we return to the Lord. That's how much he loves us. Every single time. So don't forsake him, but when you do, return. All right, number 4, This one's kind of a stretch, but I needed a V word, so just bear with me. Volunteer. Okay? It says, yield your hearts to God. Verse 23, now then, said Joshua, throw away the foreign gods that are among you and yield your hearts to the Lord, the God of Israel. Yielding our hearts to God is a voluntary action, okay? God doesn't make us yield. We make the choice to either yield or don't yield. Yield means that we give way or we volunteer the other guy the right of way. So like when you're driving and you yield, you're basically letting the other guy go first, right? They have the right of way. This is exactly how we should see our relationship with God. He has the right of way, right? When you're driving, the bigger vehicle always has the right of way. That's the way it goes. One time I was driving a motorhome. That's probably the biggest vehicle I've ever drove. Maybe a U-Haul. Yeah, I drove a U-Haul once, like a 24-foot U-Haul. Was hauling a car when we moved back to Oregon. Driving along, it was like if I wanted to get over, I just turned my blinker on and then started going over because they're going to get out of the way. I'm way bigger, right? Right, Michael? All right, okay. So yield. God is who we should yield to. The problem is we don't usually yield voluntarily or at all because we want our own way or because we think we know the best way. We've already decided the way that things should work. And we want God to yield to our ideas. We want him to come in line with our ideas, but that's not the way it works. God is the bigger vehicle, and we should always yield to him. And you have to understand, this is not just about what you do. This is not just about putting some steps in place like, oh, you know, I'm going to come in line with doing these things. I'm going to do these 5 steps that Pastor Dale's going to give me, and then it'll be fine. This is about our hearts. Because it doesn't say yield your actions. It says yield your hearts to the Lord. Because if you don't yield here, then the actions are never going to be long-term. Yield your heart. Voluntarily choose to have your heart come in line with mine. That's what God's saying here. In Psalm 37, verse 4, it talks about the desires of our heart, right? It says God will give us the desires of our heart. Well, that's the second part of it. The first part of it says, delight yourself in the Lord, which is a way of saying, come in line with God. Come in line with the way he does things. Delight yourself in the way he operates, and then he'll give you the desires of your heart. Because you know what? When you come in line with the way he operates, your desires change into his desires. And he is delighted to give us the desires of our heart when they are in line with his heart. Yield your heart to God. If we desire to be a follower of Jesus, we have to make the choice to volunteer to yield our hearts to God. All right, number 5, erect. I love this one. This was actually my favorite. The E ones were my favorite today, but this one's really my favorite. Okay. Verse 26 and 27 says this, and Joshua recorded these things in the book of the law of God. Then he took a large stone and set it up under the oak near the holy place of the Lord. See, he said to all the people, this stone will be a witness against us. It has heard all the words the Lord has said to us. It will be a witness against you if you are untrue to God. Erect. Set something up. Look, we have bad memories. All of us have bad memories. Even if you think you have a good memory, you don't have a good memory. I'm telling you right now, you don't have a good memory. I can remember stuff. The other day, I was talking to Rebecca, I started rattling off this rap song from like the late 80s, early 90s, verbatim. Just busted it out. She probably never heard it before because it was a completely obscure, weird one. It was clean, so don't get freaky for all of you. Like, ooh. She's like, you can remember that, but you can't remember to get a loaf of bread when I send you to the store. I said, well, if you put it in a wrap, then I could remember. It isn't a wrap. Okay, good one. She was here first service, and I used that joke, so she's been able to think about it for a while. On Wednesday night, we were talking about what we were thankful for. Seth talked about some stuff that he was thankful for, about some stuff that I had taught this last year, and he starts rattling off some things that I taught. And honestly, I was sitting there going, did I teach that? I don't even remember teaching that, right? We forget things. How many people could remember their resolution from last year? How many people can remember their resolution from this year? Right? Point is, we need to do stuff to help us remember things, right? How many of you make a list of the groceries you need? I was thinking about this because Rebecca makes a list of the groceries that we need, right? But we get the same stuff pretty much every week. I mean, there's some things that change, but we're getting orange juice, we're getting milk, some bread, whatever, the same things. But we still make a list, right? How come? Because we forget. How many of you set up reminders on your iPhone or your phone? Sorry for Android people, I'm not trying to make you feel bad. You know why? Because you are horrible at remembering that the garbage can needs to go out on the street on Monday night. And if you and if you don't have a reminder, guess what? Tuesday morning at 4:30, you're not going to catch the garbage truck. By the time you hear the garbage truck, it's too late. Running out there, pushing the can out in your underwear is never going to work. This is just, hypothetical, obviously. We are not good at remembering, unless you want to use that one thing that one person did that one time against them at some point, because we will remember the crap out of that, right? But we don't remember the stuff. The things we said we'd do, we don't remember. All over the Old Testament, they're setting up stones. Piles of stones. They're like, hey, grab 12 stones, one for each tribe of Israel, and put it right here to remember that time that God opened up the Jordan River. Or, hey, see that stone right there under the tree? That's going to remind you that you made this covenant today. Or this pile of stones over here is for this. All over the Old Testament, they're setting piles of rocks up everywhere. So that when they see that pile, they'll remember what happened and what they did and the commitment they made or whatever awesome thing that God did. And they'd be like, oh, yeah. And the second part of that is that when other people come and they're like, oh, what's that pile of stones? They can say, you know what? That's when God did this awesome thing in our lives. That's when he did this amazing miracle that completely changed the trajectory of our walk with him or whatever. It's awesome. And they get to remember it every time they see it. Every time they walk past that spot, that's the spot. That's what happened. That's when this happened. And sometimes we act like we don't get this. I don't know what the big deal is, keeping stuff and remembering stuff, except we do this. We do this, all right? Rebecca and I cleaned out our shed. There's some boxes in there, boxes of stuff, right? You guys know what boxes of stuff are? Right. We keep things because it has some meaning to us, right? So I go through my box in the shed. And there's various items. I don't have to go into them all right? Because I used to be kind of a hoarder. Anyways, there's this baseball glove from when I was like 10 years old. 5th, 6th grade, I played Little League baseball, right? This baseball glove is like, seriously, the size of my hand, right? It's about this big. Doesn't fit me. I couldn't put my fingers in there if I wanted to. Not that I would have even tried, because there's probably spiders in it, but that's beside the point. It's not worth anything. It's seriously not worth anything. You know why? Because I'm left-handed, which means pretty much nobody can use it. No little person I know could have used it, because I don't know any little left-handed people. Not only that, no little person that I know in my entire circle of influence has any desire to play baseball at this point. You know what I'm saying? Let alone, my parents didn't have a lot of money, so I'm sure it was probably like the cheapest one you could get at Kmart back then. Why did I save it? I'll tell you why. Because it reminded me of when I was pitching in Little League and that one game that I pitched a no-hitter. No, that's ridiculous. I didn't play pitcher. I played left out, right? Because I was horrible. I was a horrible baseball player. I was so bad that the coach, this is no joke, I'm in 5th, 6th grade, and the coach would say, listen, Dale, when you get up to bat, get like this far, get your toes like this close to the plate. It's called hugging the plate. I said, oh, okay, why? He said, because the pitcher is more likely to hit you with the ball, and then you will get on base. I was on base pretty much every time I got up to bat, and I batted 0. I never hit the ball. Why did I keep this? Why did I still have the glove? I don't know. I don't have it anymore. Listen, I'm going to give you guys information. Don't do it. Some of you, I already know you're thinking about, don't do it. It's at Goodwill. Do not go buy it. I do not want, if it comes back, there's going to be trouble. They probably don't even have it. They probably looked at it and was like, nobody's going to buy this, and threw it in the garbage. But we do this. We keep stuff to remember sometime in our lives that probably wasn't even that great. Why? But then we think it's weird that these guys are setting up rocks everywhere. But I think that's exactly what we need to do. Stop collecting things that remind you of some past that at this point you've probably glorified to make way better than it actually was, and start setting up things that remind you of what God's doing today so that you can remember tomorrow, because tomorrow you're going to forget what God did today. Why do you think I give you points that spell stuff or that all start with the same letter? I do that on purpose to try to get you guys to remember tomorrow at least one thing, right? Like you'd be like, okay, I know that he spelt something. What did he spell? Well, the first word was serve. What did he spell? I spelled serve. I put that in there twice because it's super important. Start setting up things to remember the commitments that you've made to the Lord. If you say you desire to be a disciple of Jesus, then get yourself something that will help you to remember that every single day. I don't know what it is, but find something. On the front end of this series, I said that we have to know, like, if we say we desire to be a disciple of Jesus, then we're going to have to serve. That's just the way it is, because that was Jesus. It wasn't what he did, it was who he was. He said, I didn't come here to be served. I came here to serve and to give my life as a ransom for many. That's what Jesus said. And if we're going to be followers of him, then this is the number one thing. If we desire to be a disciple of Christ, then serving is where it's at. 100%. Okay? Today, listen, I'm going to give you guys something to do. And I don't care how you do it, but I want you to get a rock. And it doesn't have to actually be a rock. I'm probably not going to get a rock because I'm going to put a reminder in my phone that pops up at different times or different places. Like if I do something, it's going to remind me to serve. If I go to some place, it's going to remind me to serve, because you can do that in iPhones. Androids, you guys just get a real rock, because you could just use your phone as a rock, basically, because that's all it's good for. Anyways, I'm just playing. Listen, there's, by this back door outside, there is a bed that used to have a bush in it. It doesn't have a bush anymore. It has a bunch of rocks. You guys can have free rocks today. Go grab a rock, okay? If you're all artistic, paint it and write serve on it and put it somewhere where you're going to see it. Don't put it out in the garage, or don't put it in your box in the shed that you'll find 20 years from now and go, what is it, serve? What's that? I'm throwing that in the bush. I don't even know what that means. Put it somewhere you can see. Put it by your TV, right? Put it by whatever device you watch Netflix on, because you'll see it then. You know what I'm saying? Put it somewhere where you're going to see it all the time. If you're old school, just write serve on your hand every day. Just when you get up, just with a pen, serve, right? If you're not artistic, just get a Sharpie, write serve. I don't scratch it out with a knife. Don't cut yourself, but scratch it out with a knife, right? Serve. Figure it out. It doesn't have to be a rock. It could be whatever you want, but figure it out. Write it down, because if we are going to desire to be disciples of Christ, then we have to remember to serve. We have to serve God and serve those that he puts in front of us, whatever that looks like to him, not to us, because I could serve all day long the things that I want to serve, but it's about listening to God and serving what he tells us to serve, right? Whatever you need to do, if it's your desire to follow Christ, do something to remind yourself to serve every day the rest of your life. Yes? This is the way. Let's pray. God, you're good to us. Thank you for this day, and thank you that you invite us to serve. God, you don't need us to serve. You don't need us to do anything, but yet you invite us into this relationship, not just to benefit us, but to also participate in the plan that you have for other people, the plan that you have for this world that we live in, the plan that you have for the people we come into contact in and the community that we live in. God, you invite us into this, and the thing that you invite us to do first and foremost and almost all the time is to serve. And so, God, I pray that we would be those who take this invitation. We would be those who say, Jesus, I want to follow you, and if I'm going to follow you, I know that I am called to serve. And we would do it, and we wouldn't do it out of some kind of weird obligation like we're trying to earn something or gain something from you, but God, we would do it because we love you, because we are calling ourselves like Christ, so we want to actually be like you. And I pray that it would flow out of us. I pray that it would not be hard, it would not be a burden, it would not make us struggle or be sad or anything like that, but it would simply be an overflow of what you do for us. God, thanks for this day. Thanks for these people. I pray that we we would make the decision and we would stick to it and we would remember to serve. We love you, Lord, and we thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.